Workplace Safety and Prevention Services presents Backstage Stories. Welcome to Backstage Stories. Today, our discussion may be a sensitive one. It may even be uncomfortable for some, and even difficult to talk about for others. We're talking about workplace violence and harassment and its impact on mental health in the workplace. And before we go any further, I want to reassure you that this is a safe space and that you do have the right to be safe in any situation at work. The performing arts is an ever-evolving and dynamic industry, one that attracts talent from near and far. The main focus of this industry is to create magic through TV, film, and live performances for its audiences. With so many different departments, venues, people, and demands, this business can change in the blink of an eye. From backstage workers to performers under the lights, to front-of-house staff, producers, directors, and wardrobe, the very nature of this industry and its demands on all involved may create risks. In this business, with so many moving parts, people, and locations, it is not uncommon to fall upon situations that may be uncomfortable or unwelcoming. The key is to always be aware and vigilant of your working environment, and to know your rights as a worker working in Ontario. Picture this. A crew from out of province arrives for a show set to debut that very night. Your job is to work with these workers, but you know they don't work with the same health and safety standards and requirements as we do here in Ontario. Past experiences show that out-of-province crews don't believe that they are bound by the same laws and standards as you are. Furthermore, you have been met with hostility and resistance when explaining the expectations in this province. Even with the best efforts made ahead of time to inform the incoming crews of the policies and laws in Ontario, you still may be met with hostility when asking some crew members to abide to the laws. Is it your role to enforce the laws? You can see how this situation could quickly escalate when there are time pressures involved. Remember, it's the day of the show. Time is critical and quickly running out. It's almost curtain call. What do you do? Now think, have you ever been in this kind of situation? And if so, does this happen often? And how could it impact your mental health? Wait, what exactly are the laws here in Ontario that protect your physical and mental well-being in your workplace? The main one that ensures all workplaces in Ontario are safe and healthy for all workers, including you, is the Occupational Health and Safety Act. This act sets out the rights and duties of all workplace parties, namely workers, supervisors, and employers, in efforts to keep workplaces safe and healthy in Ontario. The act hinges on the concept where everyone in the workplace has a shared responsibility to make sure the workplace is healthy and safe. This is called the Internal Responsibility System. Additionally, this act states that all workers have the same three rights: the right to know, the right to participate, and the right to refuse unsafe work without reprisal. The bottom line here is that there are laws in Ontario that protect you, the worker, because you have the right to work in a healthy and safe working environment, no matter where you work in Ontario. Beyond these worker rights, you need to understand and be aware of how to respond to hazards that you may encounter in your workplace. RACE is a simple model that can help you handle any hazard. It stands for Recognize, Assess, Control, and Evaluate. Let's break it down more. First, you need to be able to recognize and be aware of the hazards you are working with. This is done by either your supervisor telling you of the hazards you are working with, or encountering a hazard on the job, or having a near miss. A near miss is when you experience a situation that has the potential to injure you. The next step is to assess the risk level of the hazard. Here we are talking about the probability of being injured and the severity of the injury. Now, there is no real science behind this measure. However, keep in mind that a hazard is a hazard and it has the potential to harm you every time you are exposed to it. Meaning, unless it is eliminated altogether, once a hazard is identified, the probability for a hazard to do harm is always there unless measures are put into place to protect the worker. These measures are called controls. Controls are put in place to reduce the probability and severity of a hazard. These are measures that distance you from the potential dangers of that hazard, such as implementing policies and procedures, training staff how to properly address and work with the hazard, providing staff with personal protective equipment, and so much more. It is also encouraged under the Act for workers to provide input on how to work with a hazard more safely. But once a control is implemented, everyone needs to use it as designed. Our final step is to evaluate the risk levels again. You need to check whether the controls that have been put in place to minimize the hazard work. Or have we in fact created additional hazards by introducing these controls? Remember, under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, it is everyone's responsibility to make our workplaces healthy and safe. Let's use this model to work through the following scenario. A theater general manager was concerned that several front of house staff were receiving discriminatory remarks from patrons and fellow employees. These remarks centered around the workers' ethnicities. The impact of these comments was visibly hurtful to the staff that reported them. Can you recognize a hazard in this scenario? What are the risks, and what can be done in this situation? If you answered yes, there is a hazard here, then congratulations. You are well on your way to ensuring your health and safety at work. This is an example that can be classified as a workplace harassment hazard. And as we said before, you, as a worker, have the right to work in a safe workplace without harassment. So your first course of action should always be to report any and all hazards to your immediate supervisor. Since the staff are visibly affected in this situation, you could rate the risk level as high. This hazard could have significant impact to the psychological health and well-being of all workers if not addressed. Remember, you have the right to be treated fairly and equally at work. In circumstances like this one, it is always best to remove yourself from the situation to prevent any further harassment. The general manager in this case did the following to address these incidents. They implemented and trained their staff on new workplace violence and harassment policies and procedures. They provided their workers with a standard response protocol tool that helped guide them through various situations, and they made a point to stay in regular contact with their staff to discuss and work through any situations. The manager even had their staff role play them out so that they could see how to handle situations and ask questions. This manager took this concern very seriously and regularly emphasized that these behaviors were not acceptable. The staff in turn felt more confident and safer when interacting with patrons and co-workers in the future. Ultimately, we need to trust in each other that not only during, but even after the work is done, that all workers know what is and isn't acceptable behavior. Consider the following scene. Over the course of a year, a new performing artist began to experience unwanted advances from a producer at a well-known recording studio. Although at first these advances appeared to be harmless, over time they intensified to include more overt sexual advances, which included the producer's insistence to drive home the artist, their unexpected appearances at the artist's apartment with gifts and flowers, and ongoing advances and disturbing comments during recording sessions. It increasingly became more difficult for the performing artist to decline these advances, as they felt it may have a negative impact on the number of work opportunities available to them. As a result of the continued pressure and stress, the artist began to suffer episodes of anxiety and depression, as they felt that they had no other choice but to give in to the producer's advances. Now think how you would handle this situation if this was happening to you, or even if you were a witness to the producer's behaviors. There are many hazards we can identify here in this complex scenario, starting with workplace harassment, namely sexual in nature, and secondly, workplace mental health, since it is impacting the artist's mental well-being. This situation should be reported immediately so that it can be addressed without any further mental harm to the artist. Everyone has the right to work in a psychologically healthy and safe workplace. Both bullying and sexual harassment are unproductive and are damaging mentally to anyone involved. Under the Occupational Health and Safety Act in Ontario, you are protected from reprisal if you stand up and speak up for yourself when you feel your health and safety is in jeopardy. No matter what your role is, you have the power to be an advocate. Make sure to always protect your physical and psychological safety. And if you do not feel safe in a situation, take yourself out of that situation. Go to a safe location or space and get help. Be a promoter. Make sure you and your coworkers know your rights and responsibilities at work. and be aware of the resources and tools available to you to ensure your health and safety. Be an upstander. Be someone who recognizes when there has been an injustice and leverages their personal strengths to create change and make life better for those around them. Be a champion. Lead by example and be a role model that others in the industry will want to mirror. We all have a shared responsibility to not only take care of ourselves, but those who work around us as well. Remember, our audiences go to the movies, watch TV, and go see live performances to be entertained in ways that only the arts can. This industry has a way of telling stories from every vantage point that are immediate, relevant, personal, and inclusive. You, my friends, can make an impact anywhere you work by being aware of the hazards, reporting those hazards to your supervisor immediately, participating in resolving the hazards, and cultivating a respectful culture. Let us ensure our efforts to create a healthy and safe work environment have a positive impact. Everyone has a role to play. In this way, our workplaces will be able to continue to serve and give what the audience expects from us: magic. This has been a production of Workplace Safety and Prevention Services. WSPS offers a comprehensive approach to mental health as well as violence and harassment in the workplace. Contact us for support today at 1-877-494-9777.